So with everything I've had going on the past few days finally out of the way, I can actually get on to talking about this episode like I had wanted to a bit ago. Um, I have to say, obviously I liked it. I didn't think there was anything really wrong with it or anything like that. I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to miss Peter or anything like that. And I think that feeling is kind of mutual among people. It's sort of I always had a sort of Joaquin vibe from him. From Worlds Apart. It sort of seemed like he would be the last person picked off before the merge. He'd sort of be out there a bit and kind of have this negative tone around him that would sort of just stay there the whole time and all of that. The bit they had before the reward challenge was a little odd. I get that, yeah, there was the thing where they were shooting buoys into a basket and they're thinking, oh, obviously Scott's going to do that, so we need someone to go against him, and they're just having Nick try and get all these baskets, and will say, no, I played high school basketball. I'm like, yeah, it's great, but it's like, I don't, like, since he didn't even beat Scott, it just sort of seemed like either a waste of time or trying to set up Nick for something where he just keeps thinking that he's better than he is or whatever. I don't even really know. But like at the I think it was at Gondol, like before they even went in anything, before the challenge even happened, Peter was pretty much just going on with going right over to Ty, talking about voting out Joe, and Debbie on the other tribe, whose name I can't never remember, which I'll probably remember in like 2 minutes from now or something like that, was aligning with Nick. Anyway, back to the reward challenge. Gondol won, which isn't really overly surprising. They had Scott on it, and he pretty much just did the whole basket part at the end, no problem. And Michelle messed up with the buoys for whatever reason. I know when this started, actually, I was wondering if there were only 10 buoys that were all tied up, or if there were a lot more. I guess because I just thought maybe, oh well, there's not really a point to there being, say, 30 or 40 buoys that they have to bring back if they only need to shoot 10, other than to simply make it more of a pain in the ass. But, I guess making it more of a pain in the ass is a good enough reason anyway, so I'm not really too bothered by that. Now, Michelle was talking a bit, and they got back thinking that she was, was going to be the next out, and that she'd be on the bottom, because not only did she screw up the challenge, but that Anna got voted off the episode before. But that sort of talk she had with Debbie, and to go against Jason and all that, it made sense, but the whole way it came across just kind of irritated me. And I've mentioned this or at least I've always felt this in other situations, where it's always like you have, say, a woman who's always going, oh, a woman needs to win this. But I've always felt that's an unspoken thing, because like in Debbie's case, she's playing for herself to win. She wants to win this herself. So obviously she is going to want a woman to win, and obviously she is going to want that woman to be her. It doesn't really feel like something that you should really have to go into giant detail about and be like, and things like that to try and justify your reasons for going after someone when there's just the two of you. I mean, I'm sure there was obviously much more of a reason than that, because I doubt they had intended for it to come off as having tones of sexism to it, but it kind of did. And I know that's like, oh, but really, if it was if it was Jason and Scott talking about how a man needs to win, or really anyone talking about that, it would get a lot more flack anyway. So I'm just going to say that, brush it aside, not really bring it up again, because I don't want to get into some huge giant like flame war thing over that, over how this is how society is this and this shouldn't be that and blah blah blah, because really I don't actually care that much. I've talked about it way more than I need to already in this. So Nick tried to tell Michelle not to align with Debbie, but it didn't really come across like he had much of a reason for it. I mean, I guess maybe he thought that, oh, I'm with Debbie and I don't want anyone else to be with Debbie, so I want her all to myself type thing. I either don't remember them saying it, so either they didn't say why, or they didn't give, or they did and it's just slipped my mind right now. But he was kind of a little bit of a dick to her about it. I mean, it's not so much as how he has been in the past, but it was a bit weird. So pretty much as soon as Julia got to Gondal, switching tribes of course, Peter pretty much just goes right over to her and just tries to rope her into an alliance, which she goes along with, because really if you think about it, then she's not going to just say no. She pretty much just got there and she doesn't really know much of what's going on. The only person that she really knows it all from that tribe is Ty. So they're just two people. She can't really afford to just say no, no, no and be picky and choosy on allies. So obviously she just said yes and went along with it. Joe, of course, saw this and thought, well, Peter's being pretty shady. I don't know what the hell is going on with this. And he did, but I worded that weird, so don't worry about that. So he went and confronted Peter, and he's like, hey, did you try to get me out? Have you been throwing my name to people? Do you have something against me or whatever? And Peter danced around the question so much. I was actually almost kind of embarrassed for him, because I'm like, if your first response to someone saying, are you coming after me is, oh, I'm sorry, what did you say again? Then obviously you are. Obviously you were. It's probably the worst answer you could give to that question. I mean, either flat out lie and say no, they're making it up to try and tear us apart, or be like, well, I threw your name out just in case they have an idol or anything, because I didn't want them voting for me. Yeah, Joe's probably going to be pissed at you for doing that, but at least there will be some sort of rationalization behind it, and at least it'll come across as you having the balls to actually be upfront on something, and that when choosing not to would harm your game. I mean, I don't think he ever actually, throughout the episode, outright admitted that he did, or even subtly admitted that he had. So I don't... Peter's reasoning behind things still kind of makes me scratch my head a little. At the immunity challenge, I thought it was weird that they had that Gondo was trying to sort of build the stack from the middle, or whatever the hell it was that Peter was trying to have them do. I mean, my thought was, when they went to it, I thought, well, just do the bigger pieces on the bottom, and then just have someone really small like Julia or Ty just sit on Scott's shoulders and just go and do the top part there, because Scott's the tallest person in the game at this point, and I think he was even when it started. So that would give you the biggest advantage to try and make the top part more sturdy and things like that. And I think the other tribe, I could be remembering wrong, but I think the other tribe had someone on someone else's shoulders too. It might have been, I want to say Debbie on Nick's shoulders, but I'm not entirely sure on that, so don't go quoting me on it, though really I don't really care. But it just seemed weird that they were like, well, let's try and build it from the middle and then just pick everything up and drop it on like that. I don't think that would ever have worked out properly, no matter how many times they tried it. So after that, Aubrey and Joe sort of had this big discussion on whether they should vote out Peter or whether they should vote out Julia, because they thought, well, if they vote out Peter, then they'll lose their majority on the tribe, but Peter probably won't stick with them if they come a merge. And if they vote out, and if they, vote Julia out, then maybe they won't alienate Scott and Ty, but, Peter went to them about the vote being Julia, and they went to Julia and decided to vote off Peter, and so they went and talked to Aubrey and mentioned, which was actually a pretty convincing lie considering the circumstances, when they said that Peter had thrown her name out there like he'd thrown out Joe's. And there was a lot of talking back and forth at tribal council. It really played up that no one was sure who they were going to vote for. I don't know if it was actually that uncertain and up in the air as it got played out to be. I'd like to think it was at least somewhat like that, just because from my personal experience I'd find that to be, I like that sort of thing. So yeah, and Aubrey went up there. She originally voted out Julia, but she crossed it out, which is probably only the second or third time that's happened, I think, and wrote Peter instead, which had him go home 4-2. Now, Joe was a bit taken back by this, and I guess I can't blame him, because he seemed to have that whole loyalty thing about him, but I can't really say that voting out Peter was a bad move, because, for a number of reasons. I feel like Peter was never going to stay with them entirely, and that once the merge hit, he was going to either jump to the Beauties group or jump in with